لا بنسمي adaptation. لا لا بس اما تقول انت عارف مين هيقعدوا فين. تمام كده. Thank you very much. It's almost 6:38, so we are 8 minutes late. Sorry for that. And let us start by welcoming all of you to this side event, Strengthening Climate Adaptation and Mitigation Action, Building Climate Resilience, Inclusiveness and Sustainability Experiences from the Arab region. The side event is co-organized between, an honor to have this kind of coordination between the League of Arab States and the Arab Network for Environment and Development. And just to let you know that RAED has been accepted and adopted by the Council of Arab Ministers responsible for the environment in 1995 to be an observer, for the League of Arab States activities, especially in the area of the environment, and then later in the area of water and so on. After that, the league started to get more of civil society organizations engagement in the activities of the League of Arab States. So we are very proud that RAED was the first one to get into this level of cooperation with the League of Arab States. For the opening remarks, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Mahmoud Fathallah. Dr. Mahmoud Fathallah is the Director of the Secretariat of the Council of Arab Ministers, CAMRI, and he's also the focal point for the climate change and the League of Arab States. Dr. Mahmoud, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emad, for giving me this very important opportunities to discuss or to share with us some important issues about the Arab region. The Arab region is already facing difficulties in economic and social vulnerabilities. So it's very important to for the Arab region to deal with various difficulties such as poverty, health, and so that the COP27 is a good opportunity for discussing these issues and especially what is the best practice in some countries in the region regarding climate change adaptation, especially in water and as today is Gender Day, so it's very important also to have what is being in the Arab region for the women and children and various vulnerable people. I think it's very important to identify the ways we can address its issues in the region and identify the effort done in the region and the risk due to climate change. Finally, we can highlight the role of the stakeholders involved in this regard. NGOs is very plays a very important role to deal with this vulnerable issues and the importance of how strengthening and the capacity required for the peoples in in climate change in the region. I think we can. I think we can have a very important discussion in this world, especially as we have the panelists of various background and region. So I, I let our colleagues to discuss this important issue and potential partnership in this regard. So, and I thank you for this.
Shukran Jazeelan. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahmoud. As I said, the League of Arab States is giving a model of cooperation and partnership with the civil society, and in the different platforms that are already within the league, the civil society have the right to attend and also to raise their voice, and we are always there presenting our reports and also discussing at the policy level with the different countries and represented from governments and other stakeholders. Let me start the first presentation. We have with us today Ms. Nina Berkland. Nina is a very strong supporter and ally to RAED, the Norwegian Refugee Council. The NRC has started cooperation with Egypt and with RAED and in the Arab region more than, I would say, more than almost 15 years now. And we're still expecting more cooperation to come, especially when it comes to climate and displacement and climate and migration. So, Nina, you have the floor. Please welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, and thank you very much, League of Arab States, for inviting us to be presented at this side event. I think it's an honor for us to be allowed to come in here. And on the program, you will see that there are two names for NRC. My colleague Sama Hadid, who's still on a plane from Jordan, and I made it last night, so I'm here now. So first of all, when you have this session today, you might wonder why are we as the Norwegian Refugee Council working on people displaced? Why are we on this panel discussing around resilience, climate change, reduction in carbon emissions, etc. And I think what we very much need to look at is that we have for many years tried to make sure that in the climate change negotiations, also people who are forced to flee are talked about, and they included in the way decisions are made, and hopefully to improve the situation and reduce the risk of displacement. But we also see very much that we as humanitarian organizations, we can't just say include the people we work with, but we also need to do something actively on reducing the carbon footprint while we deliver humanitarian aid and assistance. And what we have seen is that the carbon footprint we are producing as humanitarian organizations, they also link very much to the local communities that host these people who are displaced. And we as NRC, we've been trying to look at our footprint over the last few years and to come up with a baseline. It's relatively easy to say, yes, we can replace generators with solar power, we can use more efficient vehicles, etc. We can reduce our flights, but really how do we work with communities in a way that we make people less dependent on high cost and scarce and fossil fuels. I wanted to share some examples from what we've done in Jordan over the last few years, because there in 2016 we started to work with the Jordan University of Science and Technology to train engineers to develop the solar power to produce hot water. It sounds very simple, but what we saw is that a lot of Syrian refugees coming into Jordan, living in North Jordan, you are in a country that has a high dependence on energy from outside. I'm not sure for that figure today, but it used to be more than 90% of Jordan's energy was imported from outside. Then having many people come in that needed access to the same energy, it became a big cost also for the government to provide this. So one of the things we try to do to kind of both try to reduce the emissions, but also to help making this less of a sensitive issue between refugees and the host population, where that if Jordanian people could extend their houses and build additional floor or additional rooms, we could then also help to put solar water, and in that way the refugees could stay and the homes could get access to solar water, which will also reduce the cost of energy. We also try to do the same in schools, in that they're reducing the cost of energy for schools. That could hopefully also increase better education. So kind of trying to look how to have less emissions, but also helping the refugees. So when we are looking at this, these are some examples from years back, but what we see that still in the humanitarian sector, these are relatively small examples. And I think when we look at our region, there's a lot of potential to scale up and not just have this as small good example, but really become the way we work. We also think it's important to look at in some contexts when we then use these solar powers, you also have a situation that this clean energy sector can very much become an economic dividend and make new jobs. So you kind of have a creation around new jobs in the sector as well by doing this. With these few things from the refugee perspective, I wanted to go back to kind of the overall for the event today, where we very much will look at how the impacts of climate change requires that also Arab civil society, those of us who are guests working here, that we come together and try to take a joint responsibility. We know that the COP this year here in Egypt, the next one in the Emirates, there is a lot of space to try to raise some of these issues. We also are very much aware when you look at climate funding that not much reach the Arab region, and the least reach the countries in the Arab region that are the most vulnerable, Iraq for example, and has the most need for it. So a climate hotspot, and you don't get much of the climate funding. So also in this discussion, when you talk about energy, how can that financial support also reach refugees, displaced people, but also the Arab region more than it has been doing so far. I think also when we look at this issue, it's important that we not only look climate displacement, but the whole civil society area. So we need to look at poverty, scarcity of resources like water, for example, also how that makes many countries and people more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. So what we hope to really achieve today is to get a bit more knowledge on the table, be a bit more clear what needs to be done in this context of the climate change negotiations, to make sure that more resources are put on the table globally also reach there, but also how can we who work here, whether we are international organizations coming to work together with national and local organizations, or you as many based here, how can we work together? Thank you very much. Back to you, Emad.
Thank you very much, Lina. This was a very good example from the region. We were expecting also Samah to be with us, but I'm sure she was not able to come. Our next speaker should be from Engineering Association for Development and Environment from Iraq, Engineer Muhammad Adly Mahmoud. I don't see, you are here, okay, تفضل. بدور عليك بس تفضل. تفضل. Yes, please.
Thank you to RAED for this invitation to speak. Uh, now we speak about local NGOs' contribution to climate change action and environmental conservation in Europe. Since the NGOs are emerged from the population, it gained the trust of people and the government, especially after the declaration of ISIS due to the implementation of different emergency and relief projects. This trust led to great cooperation between the government and civil society organizations in regards to work on climate change. As even though the government is now committed to the document national of determined contribution NDC, still many times the funding, routine and policy restriction will take long time to take any action. This is where the cooperation can be here as the related governmental directorates coordinate with the local NGOs to find and implement a quick solution. After the emergency ended in Iraq, EAD, which is our organization, and other local NGOs are now working on achieving the United Nations SDGs in our project as an example. Regarding construction and development project, EAD now rely on using eco-friendly materials such as thermal stone to reduce relying on mechanical methods for heating and cooling. Other approach is recycling construction materials to reduce the quantities of debris, to reduce draining the natural materials as stone and sand from rivers. Also using solar energy when possible to reduce using the generator and other actions. In the sector of education, EAD prepared and published curriculum to be used in school education directed to children about the importance of climate change action and to spread the awareness and the culture of environmental preserving. In the field of agricultural and horticulture project, EAD is relying on using the water treatment system to reduce wasting the water in the old traditional watering method, in addition to use water wells for irrigation. In the field of livelihood project, now it is essential to work cleaning the rivers and cities through cash of work activities, providing access for people to work on recycling of materials. In the field of solid waste management and recycling, EAD is developed plans and completed studies on real situation in Iraq and how to mitigate the risk of not taking a real solution towards the solution. We are sponsoring young researchers and university students to submit research and develop innovation related to sustainability and environmental conservation using artificial intelligence and robot. In the field of participating in international conference, EAD ensured to participate in COP26 and now in COP27 and other conferences to learn more from international experience to be applied in our projects and share our experience and other experience with others. We are proud to select one of our projects in 2021 as one of best practices in the field of SDGs, as the project was selected by UNVISA, which is the project of rehabilitation of the Yarmouk Park in Mosul, as one of best practices in the field of climate change action. Other Iraqi NGOs are working on providing studies related to establishment of green cities, rainwater collection, planting trees, awareness section, and other activities, and the list goes on. At the end, EAD and other Iraqi NGOs are doing their best to work on education of the mission of greenhouse gases and adhere to the SDGs, but still without sufficient funds and governmental action, we will not reach to the desired results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad. We're still looking at cases coming from different countries. We heard from Jordan and then from Iraq, and how the civil society is helping to strengthen the climate adaptation, and also to the issue of inclusiveness is one of the issues that we are discussing today. And having said that, I'm happy to give the floor to Dr. Mustafa Atiyah. Dr. Mustafa Atiyah is an international disability and inclusion consultant. So I'm very happy to hear from him his contribution and his point that will enrich, I'm sure, the panel here. Dr. Mustafa, you have the floor.
Thanks very much, and the Arab Network Ranger and Dr. Emad definitely for the opportunity. Actually, yes, we wouldn't be able to talk about sustainability without mentioning the concept of inclusion. And when we talk about the concept of inclusion, and especially that today is the Gender Day during COP27 in Egypt, it's important also to speak, and everyone talking about gender equality. But I'm coming here to speak about more of the groups who are more marginalized. So disabled women, for example, or disabled people in general. We're talking about 1 billion people around the world who are disabled. We're talking about 15% of the population, according to the WHO, of any country to be disabled. We're speaking here about impairment, which is like blind, visual hearing, physical or intellectual. And we're talking about lots of actions should be done to consider those people, to consider disabled people within the climate change strategy and also disaster planning. Let me give an example. If we have an evacuation to a building, if we have a flood, if we have an earthquake, and we have people with different types of impairment, what would be the case for disabled people? We are really proud that we are having the Convention of Rights of Persons with Disability. We are also proud that we have disability has been mentioned on 11 references within the Sustainable Development Goals. We have a great law in Egypt, which is law number 10 for 2018 about disability. Therefore, we have a great legal framework. Our demands and rights has been considered and mentioned throughout the 2030 strategy. But the question is that more should be done also towards the practice. Speaking here, for example, about financing. Everyone talking about financing, that African communities should work together, and European communities and countries definitely should provide lots of finances, but we should consider within that the issue of reasonable accommodation. I am adding as a sub-theme to the concept of inclusion, the concept of accessibility. Without having accessibility for physical or visual impairment, through listening to disabled people themselves, and this is a very, very important point, or in other words, the bottom-up approach, we wouldn't be able to know what they would like to do and how they're going to achieve their demands. We have conducted a survey with one of the research centers in Egypt, and found, for example, that due to the absence of sign language interpretation to the most programs related to climate change, people with hearing impairment knowledge about climate change is less. It's very little in comparison to those with visual impairment. So this is one example of how the absence of reasonable accommodation on each and every aspect of the climate change is really important. The defragmentation of the disability movement in the Arab region, and allow me to say that we have many DPOs, we have many activists, we have many experts working in the field, but more work needs to be done in cooperation with distinguished panelists here and people attending to empower the disability movement and to unite them together, because without that, our voices will be weak, and therefore we wouldn't have the mechanism to elevate it to the policy consultation project. We're currently trying with the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction and definitely with the Arab Network to make sure that disability is being mainstream in the climate change strategy. To make sure that the disaster planning is inclusive. And I mean by the inclusive response, to make sure that each and every action is really considering them. Disabled people are not the cherry on top of the cake, they are rather part of all our community, and they can give a lot. And I have to finally mention that during COP27, we are lucky to have representatives of different organizations of disabled people at the international level. We have the International Disability Alliance, Pacific Disability Alliance, and many other organizations like European Disability Forum. And definitely the Ministry of Social Solidarity conducted lots of activities when it comes to accessibility within COP27, yet a lot needs to be done. So I'm urging everyone here to conduct more feedback sessions, to conduct more of a focus group discussion, to listen and to clarify the correlation between disability and climate change, because everyone is asking, what is the correlation between disability and climate change? No disabled people suffering more. We have drought, we have poverty, we have malnutrition, and all of that affecting negatively to have either more impairment or wouldn't be able to provide them with the necessary and decent support. And definitely adding that the inaccessibility of different services in normal situations would be definitely enhanced more and more to more of a difficult situation when it comes to climate change. I'm always say finally, but I would like to say one important statistics at the end. 2/3 of people who died in the UK during COVID-19 were disabled. And that means, that shows you how the demands are not prioritized when it comes to difficulty. It's not fair. It's not fair because we are facing the financial crisis or pandemic crisis. We would look at disabled people later. We are equal, and we are definitely happy with our alliances to support all and each and every effort. And again, I thank the Arab Network, because without this opportunity, I wouldn't be able to share all of these interventions. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mustafa, I'm sure you heard very well how people are very happy with your talk, and let me give you my statistics from my point of view. You said 50% are disabled. I think the 85% are disabled because they don't really do the right work. So this is why, you know, the disability is on the other side, not on your side. Now it's my honor to give the floor to Dr. Suhair Rais. Dr. Suhair is the representative of the Syrian Coast Society for Environmental Protection. Dr. Suhair is also a medical doctor. So I would like to hear from her how her association was able also to deal with the strengthening of communities on the issue of climate adaptation, and also the inclusiveness and sustainability experiences you have from Syria. Dr. Suhair, you have the floor.
شكرا. أرجو أن تسمحوا لي أن أتحدث باللغة العربية، ورجاء من دكتورة إماد التعقيب. مش حطول. آسفة لأنه ما كنت محضرة برزنتيشن المشاركة، ولكن أستطيع أن أتحدث باختصار شديد. سوريا كدولة غير صناعية وكغيرها من الدول النامية مسؤوليتها محدودة جدا في مجال الانبعاثات المؤدية إلى تغيرات المناخ، ولكن تعتبر من أكثر الدول أو المناطق تأثراً بتداعيات تغير المناخ بسبب موقعها الجغرافي في المناطق الجافة وشبه الجافة. أكثر الآثار التي ظهرت في سوريا مؤخراً هو موضوع الجفاف وبعض الظواهر المناخية المتطرفة مثل الحر الشديد والبرد الشديد، بالإضافة إلى ملاحظة غزو بعض الأسماك السامة لشواطئ اللاذقية وطرطوس.
خليني أعمل هنا على طول يعني أعمل بسرعة translation. Dr. Suhair is saying that Syria, although it does not have the emissions or its percentage of share of emission is very low. However, Syria is very much affected by the climate change, especially when it comes to drought and water scarcity.
أهم الآثار كانت الآثار الصحية لتغير المناخ. أعتقد أن معظمكم سمع بعودة الكوليرا إلى سوريا في الكثير من المناطق، كذلك مرض الليشمانيا. هذا بالإضافة إلى زيادة عدد الوفيات العامة بسبب زيادة حدة الأمراض التنفسية خاصة عند الأطفال مثل الربو والتهاب القصبات المزمن، وكذلك الوفيات من أمراض القلب عند كبار السن بسبب تغيرات المناخ، حوادث التطرف.
The climate has affected the health issue in Syria, and we have the mortality rate is getting higher than before, especially in the elderly people and also children. And there are more cases of pulmonary disease, especially the asthmatic situation. So the health issues are the most important impact of the climate in Syria.
لا نستطيع أن نتجاهل بأن الحرب في سوريا على مدى 11 عام قضت على المكتسبات التنموية السابقة لها، ولذلك كان من الصعب البناء من جديد في مجال حماية البيئة والتنمية، وقد تراجع عدد جمعيات البيئة، تراجع بالعدد وبالأداء.
Unfortunately, it was it was very difficult to in a country that has all the problems that we face to put investment or financial resources into the environmental development, and also the number of NGOs working on environment has been reduced very much.
العائق الأساسي هو موضوع التمويل. لا يوجد مساعدة لا من الجانب القطاع الخاص ولا من الحكومة بحجة الظروف الراهنة وأنه في أولويات للغذاء، ولكن كمجتمع أهلي وكجمعية بيئية نحاول بالاستعانة بالشباب، بفئة الشباب، والتركيز على مشاركة المرأة لرفع سوية الوعي كبداية لدى المجتمع المحلي.
Lack of financial resources is a big challenge in Syria, but they are trying to compensate this by putting more emphasis on the role of youth and young boys and girls in doing activities, environmental activities.
وقد وقعنا مؤخرا مذكرة تعاون مع وزارة التربية للتنسيق مع المدارس في الساحل السوري، محافظتي اللاذقية وطرطوس، لعمل دورات تدريبية لتخريج مدربين مختصين بأمور المناخ.
So they have recently signed a memorandum of agreement with the Ministry of Education to build the capacity of some schools to be able to graduate more people who are more environmentally aware about the issues in Syria, in the coast of Syria.
وبما أن معظم المنظمات الدولية العاملة في سوريا تقدم المساعدات في مجال الغذاء، ولكنها ترفض التمويل المشاريع البيئية، فببساطة نستطيع أن نقول لهم أو نوجه لهم دعوة بدل أن تطعمه سمكة علمه الصيد. فجزء من التمويل أن يذهب إلى موضوع بناء القدرات والتدريب لدى ال NGOs بدلا من إعطاء المساعدات في الجانب الغذائي. وشكرا.
شكرا. Thank you very much. Dr. Suhail concluded by saying that most of the donor agencies, they are providing support for the communities in the sort of food and materials, and her point of view that instead of giving them the fish, train them how to fish, and this is why she is putting an emphasis on the capacity development for people and for the organizations, that this will make the difference in the future. Thank you very much, Dr. Suhail, for your contribution. And now we hear from my dear colleague, Dr. Hala Yusri. Dr. Hala Yusri is one of the founders and a member of the Egyptian Sustainable Development Forum. And I'm sure that we will hear from Dr. Hala some more about the inclusiveness and sustainability experiences that we have from her perspective. Please, Dr. Hala, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Emad, and thanks for RAED for inviting me to speak in such a very important event. We all know that the civil society has passed through several stages, from care, just providing education care, and it was another stage for development, and then moved to advocacy and sustainable development. So these stages formulate their roles, and I do believe there is an innovative roles for the civil society now, and it is increasing. In the developed countries, we could see that the share of the civil society is very big, and it goes smaller in the developing countries. In Egypt, we have a very unique model. Now, the civil society is getting bigger and bigger, and the roles is getting more innovative. And one of the very unique models, the contribution of the civil society in presidential initiatives, like all the workers on the grassroots levels are civil society, who are providing education, who are providing healthcare, and providing a lot of services and training on the local level. And what makes Hayat Karima a real good model that everybody is trying to add even a penny to the box of Hayat Karima. And one very good thing that took place here in the COP, that they announced Hayat Karima to be applied in Africa. So this is a very good model of the partnership between the government, the academia, the civil society, and all stakeholders, with participation, with partnership on all levels. We can do it. Even if we are talking about the climate change, we can conduct lots of programs for adaptation, mitigation, and resilience, all together with the partnership, with helping, putting hand to hand between civil society, private sector, investors, and the government. In this way, we are giving a model not only for our states, but for Africa as well. Inclusiveness, this is one of the very important issues that we should mention. As Dr. Mustafa said, we are including, all partners, women, as today is the Gender Day. Egypt is having a tremendous era of giving a full interest and care to the people with disability, either by laws or by programs, and integrating and mainstreaming these in all levels. Women, disabled, and children. You can see activities here in COP with children, with youth. all the youth who are volunteer, they are the ones who are managing every event here in COP. So inclusive is one of the success keywords that we should consider. Participation is as well. We should seek resilience. We should seek local community resilience. When I'm saying resilience, I would mean economic resilience, social resilience, and environmental resilience. And this way, we can start from local communities and come up with on the national level. One last thing is we should learn. If we have a successful initiative, we should learn how to make it like institutionalization of our success initiatives. This way, I think we should start also with the civil society because it's easier for us, to do it. We should learn how to institutionalize this initiative and present it to the government, either on the parliament to to have laws related to this, or to the government themselves and say, well, we have this model and we are presenting this model. Would you like to repeat it somewhere else until you feel it's satisfactory, and then you have it like a national initiative. So I'm very happy to be with you tonight, and I would be delighted to have any of your questions. And if we have time, I know it's the end of the day, but I can see beautiful faces here, and I see very nice spirit even in the whole hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hala. We actually were expecting Dr. Salma Zala to join the plenary here, but the panel here, I'm sorry, but unfortunately she couldn't make it because she had to be in another event as something urgent came up. But now I have also I'm pleased to give the floor to Ayunio Fanta. Ayunio is the acting director of the Nile Basin Discourse, based in Entebbe, Uganda. And we will hear from him how the issue of inclusiveness as well as sustainability is part of the MBD work. So please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Emad. I also join other speakers for thanking RAED for organizing this side event and giving us the opportunity to share our contributions. I would speak about the Nile Basin Discourse, which is a regional network of civil society organizations established in early 2000, in fact by visionary people like Dr. Emad Adly, one of the founding members. So we have a regional office in Entebbe, Uganda, and we have national offices, national discourse forums in all the 10 Nile Basin countries, working in different issues, particularly in water resource management, climate change, environment, agriculture, livelihood, and gender. So now this today, I would share NPD's experience, particularly on building climate resilience and inclusivity and sustainability, focusing on NPD's activity on women and youth. In fact, NPD's primary target groups are communities, but out of the larger community, we also focus on women and youth. because of their disproportionate position and susceptibility to climate change impacts. NVDA has been providing series of capacity building trainings to women and youth, especially on entrepreneurship, to help them create climate resilient green jobs. In most of the countries, we are seeing the impacts of the trainings. Women and youth, after our trainings, are now engaged in climate resilient activities like planting fruit trees, making energy saving cooking stoves, composting, making handcrafts out of water hyacinth, and similar other climate resilient green jobs. For instance, in Uganda, the country where the head office is, where I'm working, a group of women has already received a plot of land from the government and established a demonstration site, a center of climate resilience. That is the model, and they're planting fruit trees and distributing seedlings to communities surrounding. We have already created national Nile women networks in all the 10 countries for women to come together, connect, learn and share, and also advocate their cause. In the coming month, we have a plan to bring women from the 10 countries and discuss issues related to climate resilience, mitigation and adaptation policies in the Nile Basin region. And at the end of the workshop, we are planning to establish a regional Nile Women Network for women, to connect, share, and learn from each other. Recently, we have opened up internship program where we recruited young professionals, young girls from Egypt, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Sudan. This is opening up an opportunity for young girls to connect, share, and learn. We want to scale up this program into all the Nile Basin countries, provided that we get results. We have done also similar thing to the youth. We have established a national youth network in all the 10 countries, and also planning to establish a regional Nile youth network for the youth to connect, share, and learn, because resource, after all, is not only for today's generation, but also for the generations to come. So we have to work with youth, we have to engage youth, we have to empower them, we have to give them adequate and timely information for environmental protection, water resource management, climate mitigation and adaptation. So we are also working with youth, huge potential in the Nile region. So today, in this evening, I'm very happy that we are connecting the Arab region with the Africa region, with the Nile region, because these two regions have a very strong link in terms of economy, in terms of resource, in terms of capital flow, in terms of labor movement, human mobility. So I think this is a very good initiative, and I really encourage this to push forward, to strengthen forward. That is a few things that I want to share today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ainu, for that. Now we have more than half hour for the discussion, but let me, and I may also ask some questions for our panelists again if we need, but at least this is the time for anyone if you want to have any contribution. And let me again remind you of the why we have organized this side event. The model that we try to give, that we have the topic organized by the League of Arab States and the Arab Network for Environment and Development, RAED, in itself was a model of inclusiveness, because we wanted to have, you know, the political body working with the civil society as a model of partnership. But to be honest, it always depends on personality. It is not something that we can think that it is already, I will use the word of Dr. Hara, institutionalized. So this is why I was very happy to hear the feedback or the intervention and the contribution from different ones. So we're talking about, if we want to be inclusive, we have to think at the different level, horizontally and vertically. We have to think about how we are going to include government, civil society, private sector, academia, and so on. But I can tell you that even within government, I hear from some people in the government that the inclusiveness is not happening within the government itself. There you find the people from the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, they are not discussing the issues for the Ministry of Agriculture, or the Ministry of Environment is not really working closely with other ministries, and so on. So this is why the inclusiveness has to be something in our minds and has to be always, we have to remind ourselves of that. But now, again, when we talk about sectors, how far we are including the women in everything. I just came from a side event where we're talking about the gender issues, and it seems like we still have a long way to go. We have achieved a lot. If I remember 20 or 30 years ago when we were talking about women issues and the gender equality, it was like a very difficult issue to achieve, or it was, the impediments and the challenges were too much. But now we have examples, we have good examples. But how far we are going to build on that, and we can expand on this, and we come next year or the year after and we say that we already achieved it. The youth inclusiveness. How we are going to have the youth in the heart of everything we do. I'm happy to hear this from Ainu, and also I heard it from Dr. Suhair, and I also heard it from a different speaker. So youth has to be also the disabled. How are going to always think about they are part of, they are 1 billion out of this, how many, 6 now, around 7 billion. So they're 15%. How can I do any development? And I forgot about this 1/7 of the population. It's also how we are going to include young and old people at the same time. So this is why when it comes to climate adaptation, and if we have a disaster, who is going to suffer first? Like when Dr. Mustafa said that 2/3 of the mortality rate or the fatalities in the UK were among the disabled, because they were not really getting the right attention or the right share of the development. So this is again we are going to face in the Arab region, in the 9 places. The climate, this conference is not going to stop the climate changes. It's not going to stop the disasters that are going to happen. It's not going to stop the drought. It's not going to stop the flooding. It's not going to stop any of what the sea level rise. But only thing that we can do is to be more resilient and more resilient and more resilient. Resilience will never happen without the full inclusiveness of the different actors, the different stakeholders, the different people from in all geographical areas. We're talking about urban, coastal, rural, everything. So I just wanted to put this as you know, introduction for maybe I received some comments from the floor, and the floor is open for anyone who would like to comment or react or add or ask or whatever. Dr. Tariq.
That's just some comments and reflections that has been said from all respective presenters. And I will start with what our colleague Dr. Mustafa said about the stage of fluctuation of stables and how he linked this to the climate change. In fact, it triggered a very important issue about the climate action efforts and work. So because in many cases, or let's say most cases, the effort either by the governments or by the civic society or whatever, or the different agencies or whatever, goes even sometimes, indifferent of this area or this government or this, and indifferent of any differences in the receiving community. So this really what he said is much more than the disability issue. Looking or focusing on the most vulnerable or highly vulnerable is not a new idea, but if we look now that to the most or highly vulnerable, either by more exposure to hazards or due to inherent vulnerability, like the case here, brings the issue that we should focus on this issue. But the problem that the civil society, in the advocacy for these different issues, should be further more be dependent on real data, information, knowledge to strengthen and to upgrade the advocacy message that we deliver. So just an idea came to my mind about the Arab Observatory for Impact of Climate Change, which can pinpoint and communicate about the different groups in different countries and so on. In this case, I think the advocacy issue, the advocacy function, need much more strengthened. And in this regard, given my question to Clayton, my question about we know that we have a strategy at the Arab countries level about climate change, but there is no specific projects that has been already assigned finance and done to, except for the declared one of about the 100 the green Middle East. I don't know if this has been approved officially by the Arab League or not. And what is the situation of this? And it could be, of course, any kind of doing work at Arab level could have kind of energy and focus much more than in individual cases.
Shukran, Dr. Tariq. I know that you have asked Dr. Mahmoud something, and I will leave him to think about it, but let me see if we have more comments coming from the floor. Questions? Rada?
Thank you. I just wanted to share with the audience about our experience of RAED when we launched the initiative of Baladna, or our country hosts COP27, because I think this was a very good example of how inclusiveness could be happening on the ground. This initiative, for the audience to know, has started by establishing the local multi-stakeholder platforms in each government. This local platform, it included all the relevant stakeholders and the civil society, the National Council for Women, the universities, the schools, and the local communities, the farmers, and so on. So I think this was a model. They at first, when they met their first meeting to discuss the climate change challenges in their governorates, this was a local dialogue initiated on climate change issues for the first time. So I think this kind of inclusiveness and gathering all the relevant stakeholders together to sit on one table and discuss their challenges and the proposed solutions and propose them to the decision makers, and especially the local authorities were involved in those platforms. So I think this was a very, very good example on the ground, and has resulted on many successful results, and we're planning to sustain those results on those platforms. Even after the COP, we started this in preparation for the COP, but of course we're planning to sustain this after the COP, because this is what is important after the COP, to contribute to the national strategies on sustainable development and climate change and so on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gada. This is all, yes, good that you mentioned this, and I would like also to add to what you said, that the local platforms that we have in the different governorates did not stop at the level of the central part of the governorate, but we have seen activities that happened in the villages, small villages, and even what we call them villages, branches, and so on. And this has created a lot of awareness for the people. It's the first step, of course, because once you give the people information and data and you tell them what are the hazards and the risks that they are facing, the second step will be what are we going to do about it. So this put a lot of pressure on the Egyptian government, the coming period, to see how they are going to link what we have learned during this year with what they are going to do for the climate adaptation, which is the most important thing for the Egyptians for the time being. Before do we have any more comments coming from the floor? Questions? Yes, please.
Thank you. I have a comment. I don't have.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Mohammed Ismail. I am representative of one of the NGOs in Egypt. In Fayoum, actually. We had a project under the umbrella of the climate change. I want to ensure that the civil society entities in Egypt are working hard in the awareness to educate the youth what is the best practices to promote to mitigate climate actions. In spite of that, we as developing countries are not the source for the climate change sequences, which is coming basically from the industrial countries. In the previous COP, I remember that that was a decree of $100 billion as a compensation of mitigation costs for the climate action. I'm not sure how much has been spent on this. In this COP, I guess that the amount of money will be more than the previous one. How powerful this kind of global events to obligate the industrial countries to compensate the developing countries like us. I mean to mitigate or to adapt the climate actions. Thank you.
Shukran, Muhammad. And let me just explain about the 100 billion. The 100 billion was one of the outcomes of the Copenhagen 2009. This was 13 years ago. COP. What we are trying to get out of Sharm el-Sheikh, hopefully we can talk about more than this. But at least the minimum they want to get out of Sharm el-Sheikh is to be sure that there will be a clear mechanism that this 100 billion will be collected every year, and this 100 billion will be used every year. So this is something that we hope that, of course, the 100 billion cannot make more than 5% of what we want to do in the whole world. So this would be like a peanut. Still 95% of the amount that we need annually has to be created at the national level, at the regional level, and with smart and innovative ideas. Do we have more comments coming from? Oh, I have one here. Yes, you have the mic. Okay, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Dr. Ahmed. My name is Abdurrahman, the founder of Arab Renewable Energy Academy, Barkam. I would like to ask one question. As you know that there is, you have mentioned in your speech, there are a gap regarding to the collaboration between academia, industrial, financial sector, governmental sector in many Arab countries. Do we have appropriate mechanism to reduce this gap? Because when we look at several renewable projects in the MENA regions, the academia, they work separately from the industrial sectors. The outcome of educational institutions, academias, are not directed to benefit the industrial and commercial and financial sectors. Do you have any experience or suggested mechanism?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. I will go quickly and ask two people here on the panel because they have at least experience from outside the region, so we can maybe hear some solutions, or maybe we hear that the gap is still in other places. So I will ask Nina to tell us. Nina is from Norway, but she is living in Switzerland. So she can tell us at least how is the gap? Is there a gap, or how they are really overcoming this gap that we are having here in the region? Nina. I hope I'm not putting you in a difficult corner.
Well, it's a big corner to be in. But I think, first of all, when it comes to how do we collaborate, I think if you look just on this panel, there's a lot of different people here, and we talked about inclusion. And I think as we hear, inclusion is not just one part of me, it's many parts of me. So because I can be a woman, I can be disabled, so you can link so many. So I think how do we really work together across the different identities we very often put forward. And I wanted to share one example, what we've done for about 10 years around the people who are forced to flee linked to climate change. And there we have a group which is a very loosely coordinated, so we don't have any logo, we don't have any formal structure, but for 10 years we have been able to come to COP, to the negotiations, with some joint messaging. And in this group we have academia, we have the various national and local organizations, we have international organizations, we have the UN organization, and it's never easy to always agree on how do we say things, but still I think we have all seen that having all of us together is a much stronger voice than each of us went to the negotiators and said, think about this, because we can do it together. So I think that inclusivity is also about embracing the difference when we are looking at the different inclusiveness. And the other thing, I think when we talk about what do we want to get out on the finance, I think this year we have a very unique space on what here is called loss and damage. For so many years, the focus has been on adaptation and mitigation and getting funding to that. If you check any financial reporting of where does money on adaptation goes from the Green Climate Fund, for example, it's not for the Arab region. So yes, how can we get more to the Arab region, but also how can we, with the new funding that hopefully will start to be more after this COP on loss and damage, how can that much more reach Arab region, reach the most climate hotspots, but also reach the most vulnerable people, because a lot of these big financial structures are set up in such a way that it might reach the government, but it doesn't necessarily reach down. And I think this is where what you talked about, Gada, from your project on how you start from the community and work together. And I think with so many crises, what we see is that it's easy to be having a lot of criticism to how can we help if it's far away. When the problem is on your door, you find a way to help, because that's how we are as people. So also how do we then work together from the local level to the government level? And I don't think necessarily there's one way to do this. Each region, each group needs to find different ways of doing this, and some things I'm sure you do very strongly as Arab organizations, civil society, governments together. Other things you will do with other parts of the world together. But this chance of having two climate change negotiations in the Arab region, how do you use that to push? And I will share with those of you interested, my colleague who's not there yet, she wrote an article for Al Jazeera trying to explain how can this space be used and how is this a way to mobilize so you really get the Arab world to the forefront of the discussion around climate financing. I'll share the link after so those interested can get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nina. And now I will ask Dr. Mustafa, because he lived in the UK, or still lives in the UK, and he might also give us an idea and answer for the question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Emad. And as Dr. Tarek mentioned, actually, I think one challenge to reach NGOs working in the field of disability, or maybe disabled people organizations, is that we somehow don't know where are they, that we somehow do not have kind of an outreach strategy. We are enthusiastic to work with them. We would like to provide them with much support. We are aiming to hear them, but we don't know how. So this is why I think one recommendation is to kind of formulate within the network an outreach strategy, including different accessibility measures, to ensure that there is an equality of participation, because even within the field of disability, we have some sort of, I don't want to say discrimination, but some sort of inequality. We have big NGOs who are able to write proposals, who are able to having more reach and access to government and international organizations, but we also have very small organizations working at district or village level, and they may need an extra mile to be done from someone to be work with them. Yes, in UK, for example, I will not speak about an example from the climate change, but we always have this concept of assessment. So if you are going to the university and you are a disabled person, they ask you what are your needs and how much this needs costs the university, and whether we need other funders to support Mustafa because he is a disabled person. And then they accept Mustafa. They are not accepting him before making sure that all of his requirements are available. Similarly, It is the situation to work. We have a big organization called Access to Work. So if Dr. Emad on his organization, for example, would like to employ someone, he wouldn't have to pair with all of the logistics and accommodations, but rather asking this organization, and between them, all the accommodations would be offered. I'm sure that we have creative solutions here. We have community-based inclusive development, which I urge you all to read about. Very interesting concept that small organizations or disabled people try to make youth centers accessible, or to make kindergartens or other organizations. But definitely, the concept of the Convention of Rights of People with Disability, which is nothing about us without us, or the concept of the SDGs, which is leaving no one behind, it's an important or a core element in order to make sure that the inclusivity and sustainability are going on side by side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mustafa. I know that Dr. Hala would like to say something, but Dr. Mahmoud, are you ready to answer the question of Dr. Tariq about the question he raised about the Park states? Yes, please go ahead and take Dr. Hala.
Thank you. Regarding the green initiative of Saudi Arabia, it is not needed to have permission from League of Arab States, because this is just a national initiative for Saudi Arabia. Yes, it's Middle East, but this is according to national initiative, not Arab initiative. This is you are talking about what other initiatives on the Arab League dealing with this regard. There is a sustainable electricity for small scale communities. This is an initiative, it's Arab initiative by League of Arab States and ESPA, helping small communities to access electricity where they not have access to the electricity grid. So this is another initiative. And there is another initiative in the League of Arab States regarding the disability people, and also the learning and education for disabilities. But actually, I don't have details for this, because this is outside our mandate. I think this is we have different initiatives regarding how inclusiveness of people not only to deal with the climate change, but it is in general to improve the accessibility and the life of people. So I think this is about your question. So thank you.
Thank you. Very quickly, Dr. Hala, if you can respond to the issue of the gap.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Dr. Abdurrahman? صح? Okay. In fact, you are talking about a pain in heart and mind of every researcher. Yes, you pinpoint what's really irritating most of the researchers, that I pay an effort and come up with an innovation, with a product, with an invention, or such a thing. And then it's nothing. It's only like a piece of paper on the shelves. Okay. we need to develop that. And I think researchers have the load of doing that. We have to have new innovative roles as researchers. First, we have to go for the cycle of research and development. Second, we have to apply in research stations to make sure that this innovation or this innovative kind of thing or product is adapted to this place. Third, it has to have a socio-economic and environmental visibility. Three together. And if we can, if it will be a market, innovation that it needs marketing, so marketing visibility would be also needed.
Thank you, Dr. Hala. I have only 5 seconds.
Okay. Institutionalization of the model that you are coming, you do it on the local base and then it will come up. Institutional channels has to be there for taking the scientific studies and researches and how we apply on ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hala. It's 8 o'clock and we had 1.5 hours together. I know you are all tired. I am personally very tired. I started my first meeting at 9 and I've been in meetings from 9 until now, non-stop. But let me, on behalf of you, thank first of all our partner, the League of Arab States, Dr. Mahmoud Fathallah. The League of Arab States has given a very good example of cooperation and partnership with RAED, with the Arab Network for Environmental Development, on many levels. So please thank him with me and give him a round of applause. And thank you for all the panelists. I start with Nina, my strong partner and support to many of RAED activities in the region, in the Arab region, and more to go, inshallah, with the League of Arab States, Dr. Hala Yusri from the Egyptian Sustainable Development Forum, Dr. Suhair Reyes from the Syrian Coastal Environmental Association in Latvia, and Dr. Mustafa Kamal Atiyah from as an expert on disabled and climate, and Mr. Ayinu Fenta, the acting director of the Nile Basin Discourse. Your presence was very important to all of us. Thank you very much for being here, and thanks to the participants and the audience, and for the nice questions and comments. And if please, I would ask Dr. Muhammad to come on. Please come up there on the right. I forgot to thank you also, Dr. Muhammad from Iraq. I'm sorry that it was only the number of seats, and in a very humble way he was sitting down there. But Bahia, come over and take a photo for the panelists together here on the stage, please. Yes. Don't forget our professional photographer. He's carrying his